You'll be able to hear us through the meeting. Video may be a little distorted, if at all, so we'll work with what we have. That being said, we're in the lower theater. There is a Zoom link. If you're lucky enough, or perhaps you can get onto it with there. And there is also a phone link. So that said, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business to approve the minutes of October 18th. It's in your packet. So I take the motion.
I move you approve the minutes of Tuesday, October 18th.
Here, a second. Motion's made and seconded to approve the minutes of October 18th. Any further discussion, corrections, deletions, omissions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. We will have one. Item number 8 will be a motion to take care of the resolution for an MP1, which is something we acted upon a while ago, but now it's come back to us because they want the board to sign. So if you take some action on it, we will have to ratify it at the 15th meeting. Public comment on items not on the agenda. 3 minutes per person. Seeing and hearing none, can move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. I'll try to speak up so hopefully you can capture the audio. A couple of things, community-based. The Bellows Falls Fire Department will have a full and booster update on the 3rd of November. So that would be what, this Thursday, I believe. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. They have a trailer they'll come. So they'll have the newest boosters as well as various flu shots if people have not been able to get their flu shots. You don't have to schedule an appointment. So they should be there from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. That's Rescue Inc. that provides that service for us. The downtown streetlights, we've been working on, we have quite a few of our ballasts that are failing, and we've been working with River Tech and a electrical contractor, and they came up with a system so that we didn't have to replace all of the ballasts. He has a way, they have manufactured a metal plate so we can install the newest LED lights on our existing ballasts and not have to spend $3,000 to $4,000 to replace the entire unit themselves. Those have been done as a project, so we have those available now. The contractor now has them. So we're hoping he'll be in to finish the street light. I think he has 20 of them roughly. And I think the last count I had, there was about 21 lights that are out in various stages that need replacement. So he is hopefully going to be here either by the end of this week or early next week to get that done, which is somewhat important only from the standpoint as we change clocks over the weekend. So you'll start to notice now in the evening, so it'll get darker earlier. It'd be nice to have those extra lights. So hopefully that'll get done prior to the holiday decoration installations, which are actually going to start on the following weekend on the 13th. There'll actually be folks out putting those things up as well. You might see some people doing some borings near Canal Street and also near the parking lot. Again, this is just more work that's going to support some of the utility locations for the Depot Bridge project. So if you do see a boring machine or people that are doing some sort of archaeological work, they're going to be drilling some holes, and then that'll be starting next week. Hopefully they get done fairly quickly. It looks like the weather is going to cooperate, so you might see that activity there. Just as an FYI, that's what they're doing. And then finally, we spoke with the state at length after our last meeting with VHB about the bridge and whether or not we wanted to galvanize, galvanize and just let the metal sort of over time change its patina, or did we want to paint? And so there's a host of issues that I think the board needs to weigh in on. The state is willing to let us go either direction, and there's a whole host of colors that we can look at. There's a couple of caveats, is that because there are historic preservation requirements, that we would have to get some response back about paint color approvals. There's a color chart that we could work with. But the other thing that they just want the board to be aware of is if we choose to go and paint the bridge and going to be our responsibility to retain it at some point in time. The state will not have, and that also is the same for the pedestrian bridge as well. And their estimate, just so that you know, is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to retain those bridges. So it's a decision that I think the board needs to mull over, and we're not at the point where we have to make an immediate decision, but we certainly need to give them some guidance here in the next month to 6 weeks, so they can continue with finalizing the bid specs and moving ahead on the next phase of the bridge project, which would be the utility work. So
Could we paint the little bridge and not the big bridge?
you can have one of them just as galvanized and paint the other, absolutely. And there's a whole host of colors, like I said. There's a color chart that goes along with two different, basically they use two different vendors' paint charts for the state approved paint colors. One is called Carboline and the other, obviously, Sherwin-Williams. You've heard of Sherwin-Williams. I have no idea what the Carboline paint chart looks like. But there is some follow-up if we want to look at painting and colors and work with them on if there is a decision or you want to do that, look at the colors, make a potential choice, and then work with the state to get the historic preservation review.
Might be nice to have the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, I mean,
No?
again, it's the board's, it won't be this board's problem, or probably the board's 40 years from now will curse you for having to fix the bridge, but
We're already getting
50 years from now, or however long the state's gonna last. But again, that's a board decision, and just wanted to bring that to your attention because it will need some follow-up, so. So,
Yeah.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Scott, I'm wondering what you and Peter would recommend as follow-up for the Bartonville traffic safety. And I know it's we don't want to get into it tonight, it's too big a question, but there has been a lot of correspondence. And wondering what process you guys would recommend.
Yeah, that's a tough decision for the board because nobody's happy with the enforcement contracts that they have, right? The sheriff or the shared services agreements, right? We talked to Westminster, they weren't terribly pleased with their current arrangement. They were hoping that the village might provide some additional support. The village is struggling just to maintain their own roster. I think that the board probably, as part of the budget discussion, needs to have a more in-depth conversation at the rates that they're charging. Just looking at even 20 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, you're looking at a $15,000 commitment. You want to hire your sheriff just to do 20 hours a week, which is not a tremendous amount of police activity.
If Susan were here, because she probably lives in that neighborhood, would it be helpful to have that discussion when she's here, put on the agenda for a future meeting?
I was gonna suggest that we like either the state police itself or the sheriff both in here and have the people from Rockingham here so they can hear from the official source that either they can't do it or they don't have enough help to do it. And then we back up to the 20 fund from there. I mean, we used to have a constable. We had two of them actually. Ron Lake was one, and the lieutenant was also one that he has passed away since, and Ron's no longer with us. He's on his own, and as Scott said, we don't have enough people to handle what we have now, but at least they would get some response from the people they should be contacting. Even Sue has mentioned in her emails, they need to call the state police, no matter how it is, but they're gonna get the answer that they are not gonna respond to speeding and the squeal and get tires. I mean, just coming into town, look at all the black marks we got from these people burning out all over town here lately. I don't know what that's all about.
Well, that was tied to a funeral, unfortunately.
There are some people that are feeling that even more serious crimes not being responded to in any time. Yeah, so, but maybe I like your idea of inviting.
Well, invite them in there and find out why they can. I mean, they seem to be able to find 6 officers and cars to take care of Burlington on the weekends. Not that it's having any big effect up there, because it's still getting stabbed and shot and beat up there. But at least if they hear it directly from them, they can ask them the questions instead of putting us in the in the, in the middle.
That's a great idea. Is there some consensus on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have it here for the 15th if we don't have anything too drastic on the agenda.
Yeah, we can try to get it
Yeah,
right to the
it's on the
15th.
in here.
That's a really good.
'Cause I know it's, Scott has got, really, I know Westminster's not happy with them,
No.
with the sheriffs, and neither is Saxon River at this point. So where do you go from there? You don't have anybody else.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
That's good.
okay.
I just have one.
Anything
question.
else for Scott?
I just have one question. Scott, when they replace the street lights, are they going to do on the ones that have two heads? Are they going to replace both heads if one of them's burned out, or will they just do the one that's burned out?
I think at this point, because we have so many of them right now, they're just gonna do the ones that are burned out. That they have the the pieces for. But I'm hoping that that's all he needs, to at least get those 18, 20 of them functioning. So,
And were they going to do those with the 3,000 Kelvin bulbs like you talked about before?
I don't know what he has in his inventory, that's what I've asked him to do, but I'll follow up to make sure that we can, resolve preference.
All right, before we get into the main agenda, I would just like to make a statement that we will have a short executive session to discuss union negotiation strategy. There will be no comment after we come out, so people don't have to worry about missing something in the translation. So that being said, let's move on to item number 1, which is the opioid settlement proposal update, which we took up the last meeting, but there was no representative here to discuss it from the Turning Point South, and I guess.
You got all sorts of folks here tonight.
Oh, we got 3 of them.
Here or?
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah,
just
so-
Yeah, okay.
to the microphone. Thank you.
There's consensus to approve it, but we just want to hear from.
Yeah, sure. So I'm here with our colleagues from the Community Recovery Center in Springfield and now I've been introduced themselves. I guess we're here to answer any questions, to clarify sort of what the funding would be for and who's managing it. So we're the local organization around prevention, and we work closely with community partners around different issues related to substance use. And we meet monthly with a group of agencies called the Connecting Crew, and we talk about how we can ensure that there's enough supports and we can work together to reduce opioid overdoses and other substance use related issues within our community. So when we heard about the opioid settlement funds, we brought that information to the Connecting Crew, and the group decided that it would be wonderful to be able to support the work of Turning Point because they're really the ones who are on the ground seeing the impacts of that. So if it's okay with you, I'll pass it on to them to answer any questions about the proposal or what. Is there anything else that you wanted to know about this collaboration and what we're doing to address substance use in the community?
Is there, is this connected in any way with Park Place?
We're behind, we're in the place, but we're separate. We're Turning Point South is its own entity. We're a satellite of Turning Point Recovery Center in Springfield.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, one of our concerns was how you guys would cooperate with Laura's organization. It sounds like that was part of the original plan.
Well, I'm on the board of First Falls Connection, so that may give you something like your.
That's good.
Advisory board. We work with people that are either in active use or in recovery. There's prevention, there's enforcement, and there's recovery. And Greater Falls Connection does a tremendous job. I've been involved with them since 2016 as a spiritual representative. And but we deal with people that are struggling with this disease. I'm in recovery, Zach's in recovery. We both know what it's like to be there. And we have a lot of resources the hardest thing is for people to know where they're, where we are physically and what we do. There was a great article in the Commons 2 weeks ago, front page, about Turning Point South. So we're connected to Parks Place. As far as we're in the same, we rent our facilities from.
Do you visit clients at their homes, or how do you physically connect?
So the drop-in center is a safe place for, people seeking or the early stages of their recovery to come and do, recovery coaching or resource brokering and kind of meet people where they're at. Not necessarily going in people's homes, but we do outreach. We have a Springfield outreach program, which is an overdose response. So we're working with local law enforcement to help people get the services they want or need.
There's 2 AA meetings a week that use our upstairs. And along with Mike Johnson from the executive director of Turning Point in Springfield, he and I host a grief group called Healing After Loss, which is for people who've lost somebody to this illness, to overdose. And we meet the second Tuesday of the month in Springfield, also on Zoom with hybrid, and the fourth Tuesday of the month at by Parks Place. And I'm one of those people. My oldest son Noah died from an overdose 4 years ago. So besides being a person with this disease and working in the field, I'm a parent that no parent wants to be. So any way that we can stop some other family from going through that kind of thing. And I don't think there's a person in the room that hasn't been in some way outside what opioids have done. And I live right here in town. I live right one 6 minutes away. And we're there every day, Monday to Friday from 10 to 3. And the proposal, if I can just speak to that for a second, one of the hard things is getting people to know where they are, that the door is open. And so when we talked about it, Laura and I and Zach, I said, let's get an outreach person. If we can get funding for an outreach person, this person would 10 hours a week would be able to go into the community to meet business owners, to meet civic groups, Rotary, etc., faith communities, which I'm a big fan of, and people on the street, being able to let people know that the door is open and you're welcome. There's help available. And that would be $15 an hour, 10 hours a week, for 24 weeks, 6 months. Also in the proposal, we requested a sign for the fence on George Street by the school parking lot, because everybody comes to Parks Place, to the front where there's no parking on school extension. And I thought we thought that a sign on that fence saying, Turning Point South, and underneath Parks Place, Greater Falls Connection parking floor, and then a sign over the door of the county house. There's no way for anybody to know where do I go when I get there.
Yeah, and Wednesday evenings, we also have a group called Friends and Family, and that's a family support group where everybody struggling with their loved ones and knowing what steps to take, the whole boundaries, and we're also doing that on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. At 31 South.
Are you getting much response to your folks?
From the newspaper article, because I track, we have a sheet with 22 data points on it that we submit to the Turning Point and Springfield, so they know how many in-house calls, how many phone calls, how many recovery, how many meetings, etc. So we're able to track what we're doing. And as I said in the last email to Scott, just from that newspaper article, I just saw an increase. I mean, I'm sitting in the office, the phone is ringing, like that's which is nice, and I believe in good file. Plus, we're going to, on the 6th of December, we're going to do an open house on Tuesday, the 6th of December from 4 community. We're gonna put up flyers, to let people know events, there's gonna be pizza and refreshments, and also just people to get to know what we do.
Anyone else have any questions?
I think having the community outreach, more robust community outreach is a great idea because I found out about Turning Point South about 2 years ago when you had a candlelight vigil downtown. And so it was just something, that was visible, in a public place, and that's how I found out about organizations.
Are your meetings well attended?
Yeah, so there's
Anywhere from like 8 to 12 people. Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's a pretty good amount.
Yeah, that's good.
Post COVID, or, during COVID, a lot of meetings they go virtual.
and now it's not just alcohol. I started back year a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. There used to be one here in town in 2011. And 38 Sundays at 5:30, I would be at Turning Point, the open door, you went to film, and I had to go with 5 people. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have this use disorder, but not necessarily alcoholism. Go to become the AA. And if we get some excitement going, then I'm going to do the NA meeting.
The request is for, total request anyway, was for $4,050, and I think the opioid settlements, the two of them was around $3,700.
It's in that neighborhood, yeah. Little, like 3,800.
So I guess we need some approval from the board to increase the amount to the 40/50.
I think we weren't sure how much the amount was. I think we weren't sure how much it was or how much the request, so there may be some flexibility too.
Well, basically, it's your signs, basically, because the 3,600 cost for your outreach person or anything would be there, but if you're looking for the, $300 for the sign, 150 for another painted sign over the Turning Point store, so,
Well, the outreach person, obviously, I didn't know what number we were working with. I did look it up and saw that there were 2 settlement payments.
Yeah.
Rockingham now, and what's on hand, and what's on December. And I can go out, basically donors to get some signage up. I was just looking at it.
Yeah, no, there's just, I get a feeling what the board wants to do.
So,
there.
so what, do we need a motion for the 4,500 or a motion for the difference between the grant and 4,000?
We need a motion to approve one, either 40/50 or the amount of the opioid settlement, whatever that happens to be. And then decide whether we want to make up the difference. So if you vote for just the opioid settlement, then they would just get the $3,800. And as the gentleman said, they can find the sign money,
Well, I'd like to just throw out a motion that we donate the complete request, most of it to be paid by the opioid settlement.
Do a second.
I just think of that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Look at your Scott's recommendation.
No, I think listen, we'll find, obviously, we're trying to support this. And, we're hoping that maybe, the opioid settlement numbers are really meager. They're very disappointing compared to the problem that was caused by the opioids. So I'm hoping that the money continues and maybe grows over time. I don't quite understand why we're getting these pittances in some of these communities that have been devastated by this. It makes no sense to me. So it's a small step forward.
Would you guys contract with the sign painters, or is that the town that did that?
And those were rough numbers that I had based on some projections from people that are carpenters and painters. So, that was just, that number is a hard number. I know Frank Hawkins, I is a friend that I'm talking about something. I don't know if he's doing many signs anymore, but.
They'll make you a nice sign. They'll make you a nice sign.
All right, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of motion to approve the 4,050 for Turning Point South, would say aye.
All right.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. You're all set. Appreciate you guys coming in
Yeah,
tonight.
just for the record, can we introduce them?
Sure, they didn't introduce themselves.
Yeah,
That's it.
sorry.
I think the gentleman mentioned his name, Zach, and
Yeah,
Yeah, my name is Zach Lavelle.
And I'm on the small, some computer small. Who takes about coffee, so I'm the ideal employee. Really grateful.
quite welcome. Okay, let's go to number 2, which is the bike ped, which I wants to say bike walk committee. So who's leading this off? Are you leading it, Rick? You
I'll
can
begin, I'll go like that. So I'm the select board representative of liaison with the committee formerly known as Bike Ped. And we now would like to change our name to Walk Bike, which is, we've seen other towns use it, and people, the word ped confused people. Some people thought it was kind of a stocky one, whatever. So we would like to move that our committee be renamed. I don't know if that needs a motion.
I don't think it needs a motion. I think it just needs consensus regarding the name your committee. We've done that, so just
Yep.
a consensus that board agrees to change to walk like.
All right.
So, move on, sir.
All right, and Peter Bergstrom, who is with us via Zoom, he is a former member of the Saxon River Valley Trail Initiative, SRVTI, which has been working for about 5 years, Peter.
I think so, yeah.
So they we're down to just 2 people, but their work is very, very important. So we agreed, we thought it'd be a neat idea to bring Peter on the Walk Bike Committee, and he could bring his expertise and all the work that he's done with grant applications for trails, including the Riverfront Park Trail Extension, which we're applying for a grant for.
Okay, we will need a motion for this act.
Okay, so I move that Peter Bergstrom be appointed to the Walk Bike Committee.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made second to appoint Peter Bertram to the Walk Bike Committee. There is a letter of application in your packet with some other information. Thank you, Peter. So is there any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Peter, you're elected. Good luck. Okay. Now, historical mark, you chuckle, you haven't got to know what you're getting into. Historical markers signage, what's that all about? Anybody? Historical markers. Anybody that looks like we get nowhere on that one?
I think
Probably
Peter
ought
does
to
that.
come up front to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of chairs there. We have no information, I don't know what you're after.
I would just have as a mock-up of the potential.
Oh, okay,
So that's fine.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was a headline.
Okay, yeah, that Peter is here. Okay,
maybe there's Saxon River Trail on the marker. It is Riverfront Trail because it's confusing, right by the river. It's never
Right.
river.
exactly. So there was in the packet, was there a picture of what we were proposing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is it. And it's going to be the Bellows Falls Riverfront Trail. The Historical Society has been consulted. They hold the easements from some of the property owners that will enable us to create this. Improvement. So Bonnie, you're Historical Society.
Right, yeah, I saw that, Peter sent it to us. And I like it because we call our section the Riverfront Trail. And it continues on, you know, so that people don't get confused and think it's, you know, going some other place or something like that, you know. The sign that's there now says, here begins the Saxon River Valley Trail. And you might say, oh, well, where's this going to take me, you know? So there's a continuity to it, you know, I think it's nice.
Yeah, just quickly that Well, I guess the question is there still something at the beginning that says this connects you to the section? Because if they're looking for that, and they see Riverfront Trail, that they need to know about Section Trail, they might not know, think that.
No, they wouldn't.
I don't know if the Secular Trail had, that name had much currency. Did anybody? I would mention it, people would go blank. I don't think, is it? I mean,
Because it doesn't exist yet.
Right.
If it's out in the community, I don't know that that trail has an identity.
It's not really quite exist.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not
I
there.
know that Peter's working on it, but I don't think they've got
Yeah.
anything
No.
off the ground yet.
The thing is, this is the Historical Society's easement, right? That we have offered to Saxon's River Valley Trail Initiative. So I think it's appropriate to call that section of it the Riverfront Trail. Maybe if the Saxon's River Valley Trail comes to be at the point that it meets the easement, would be the place
Right.
for that.
Right.
Sign, you know?
So do we need a motion to approve this, or what's the, is it just for the board's information?
I would think it's just for board's information, unless you're looking for buckles, money,
Yeah, and Gary might be able to speak to that.
and that's would need a motion for. There's no information here for what the cost, the sign, or so it's gonna be homemade or what, I don't know.
More money?
Cardboard, you know.
I think Gary could fill in some of those gaps.
So the, I guess the funding piece is just a question of what's included in it and what the walk bike committee wants. The recommendation from having worked with Saxon River Valley Trail Initiative on this for a couple of years and participated with the Historical Society, I think it makes sense to look at the V-Trans transportation alternatives. I'm actually, Scott and I looked at it, talked about it all. The Forest and Parks application, which we submitted, the town submitted last year and put some match funds to it. That application does all kinds of trails. It's very competitive. They look for a robust public community process, and their feedback last year to us was that for them to fund something, they wanted to see a lot more community organizations involved, a lot of volunteerism, a lot of community oomph behind it. And the Historical Society Trail is much more of a family-oriented, ADA accessible. At the grist mill, they just put on the ramp for ADA accessibility, and the trail that with Swifty that we designed was more of a backwoods trail, some steep sections between the wastewater treatment plant and the Liberty Mill. And so the V-Trans grants we'd be very competitive with. They're more interested in the transportation aspect of it. And so the recommendation would be for the first year grant to be a scoping and engineering study that took the trail that Swifty designed last year and make it ADA accessible, made it more of a transportation facility. There's a couple of, pretty much all of Bellows Falls stormwater drains through some structures on both sides of the wastewater treatment plant. So we could certainly engineer better structures around those. And so the Transportation Alternatives grants would fund the engineering and scoping study to make it a bit more of a higher level trail to match the Historical Society one for family ADA capability. And then the following year, or even the year after that, both grants could be applied for if there's another Forest Parks and Recreation grant. But the V-Trans one is there annually and provides up to $300,000 of funding. And they do like to fund the ones that they do scoping studies on, the implementation. It's kind of a two-step, 3-year program that they look at. So anyway, for that section of trail, like right now, Historical Society Trail is great, and it goes to a scenic overlook, but it's really, you go, you turn around and come back. So this would, if you look at the diagram, there's parking areas designed into it at both ends of the trail. It creates more of a walkthrough, and would be a really important segment to have. It would make, it would turn the Historical Society Riverfront Park, it would turn that trail into more of a transportation trail that actually goes from one place to another place, as opposed to the scenic overlook and back. And that would help in the future with funding for the rest of that trail through the Sackens River is going to be even more challenging. And so having this section completed all the way from Bellows Falls downtown through to the Saxons River would be great to have it as a lead-in for the rest of the trail.
Yeah, I admire your ambitions here. I can't see how you can get a transportation grant for a trail that just doesn't go anywhere.
It goes to Paper Mill Road.
It goes to Paper Mill Road, but I mean, how can you say that this is the important transportation route?
Well, it's a transportation alternatives grant, so it's not for traditional roads and bridges
Right.
and that type of transportation infrastructure. It's really established for this type of rails to trails or other connectivity using other, not just automobiles. So it's really targeted for this type of.
I can see it as a leg of a larger project. But I don't know.
Right.
Transportation means, you're going somewhere. Like you're still going to go there and turn around and come back.
Well, so this, if you look at the trail design, it does have parking areas at both ends. At Paper Mill Road by the Saxons River estuary. And so what this describes is eligible projects, construction, planning, and design of on-road and off-road trail facilities for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized forms of transportation, including sidewalks, bicycle infrastructure, pedestrian and bicycle signals, traffic calming lighting. So it does some more robust road type, but it also does the off-road trail types. So it is part of their mission to do this type of
Okay,
consider
great.
transportation.
The point of information here, we're kind of straight from what we're talking about, a sign. Now we're on to the
Yeah.
grant application here, which is the next item down. So
Sorry,
I guess
thought
my
we were
question
on the
would
right-
be,
I
the
didn't
follow-up
realize it
would
was
be,
the sign.
would the sign be included, the cost of the sign, if there, whatever it happens to be, a piece of cardboard or whether it's some fancy sign you're gonna put up, would that be included in the grant?
Like $3 is fine. So Peter's this, I'm sorry Peter left me because he scoped out all that stuff. We were discussing it. Right. The other thing, Bobby, to your question, it will add a tremendous scenic opportunity for people to come to town and people with baby strollers or people on bikes will be able to go. And it also does, Route 5 is the only way to get to that part of town somehow. So this would actually enable bicyclists, strollers, walkers to be away from the highway. An alternative. So,
No, I'm not against it at all. I'm totally for it.
yeah.
I break my neck to keep that park together. And I've been in all those meetings with the Monadnock Rail Trail Group and everything. I was just wondering if it was not wishful thinking that we were going to get a transportation grant for all this scoping work and everything, with something that doesn't really provide transportation from one point to another. I'm just really
I think I
questioning that.
can provide some reinforcement for that idea. that this is actually a transportation piece, because this will actually be connecting to neighborhoods. It'll actually be providing a shortcut between the downtown area and that, Granger, Barker
Right.
Street neighborhood. And I think that having that stronger connection will help make that neighborhood much more desirable in the future.
Mhm.
So I think it would be a major boost to that particular part of town to have a quicker. Bike
And
pedestrian,
yeah, I don't
something
mean to
that's
come off
actually- Oh, no, I know,
against
just to add to the conversation, that I think that upgrading this to ADA compliance will be a really big boost, because I think that just having it as a rough trail, while that is a good part for the future build out of the Saxon River Trail, having it as an actual transportation corridor will really be a big boost to that neighborhood.
Maybe somebody will want to do something with the Temco building someday.
I'll make a suggestion here. Why don't we're off the subject again. We're back into the grant application and we're supposed to be talking about the marker signage. But as Rick said, Peter Bertram had the information. So why don't we get some information from him for the next meeting so we know if there's funding required or whatever. And
I don't think we're not talking big dollars at all.
no, I know, but we should have something.
Right, okay, well, I'll have Peter prepare something.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've had several discussions around about the next item, which is a grant proposal. And I don't know again, this is Peter's, I guess Peter Bertram was really missing.
Well, actually, yeah. Heard.
So,
Discussion
you know,
we had.
is it a grant? Are we applying for another grant for the transportation alternative? Or what's going on here with this? And the other one I know said that it was got disqualified. So that was last year. So is this something that we're trying for this year? Or
Yeah,
whatever?
Sure, so that was a recommendation. Probably should have had Peter go first on this. I didn't realize we were on the sign, which Peter had on the agenda. I thought I was being asked about the grant, so I apologize for that. But we would come to a board meeting with a completed grant application, the next select board meeting, and request a 20% matching funds. If the Walk Bike Committee made that recommendation.
Yeah, I noticed there's something there about a $6,000 matching fund. So I don't know what the elastic grant required from Forest Park, but
Just depends on the amount, because it's.
yeah, I assume that.
20% up to a certain, I guess, max.
And the other piece is that one of the reasons we were declined on the previous grant application was lack of robust community involvement.
Yeah.
We have tentatively scheduled a December 7th meeting of all the trail organizations. Anyway, that's
Not a good sign.
That's the one day we come up with. We're gonna hold it at the library, we invite all the stakeholders, trails. Basically, bike or pedestrian transportation. And so having, and that will, I think, help prove to the grant application people, review people, that we're serious.
Well, be sure and get a hold of the people like the Monadnock group, right? You know her.
Yeah, and then that Rail Trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Can you just repeat what that is?
December 7th,
December
at
7th.
6 p.m.
They have information.
Those concerns on library?
I think pretty much that's what people, that was the time suggested by the library.
Okay. Yeah.
So who would we hook Mike up to of the Rail Trail Collaborative? Mike Kowalski, who would we connect him with to, or his group to show up and speak to?
Marcia is our chair, or I'm glad that he connected to as the select board liaison, whichever. Obviously a liaison, but then that rail trail person wants to be contact about our public meeting. He needs a person to be in contact with. Okay, yes, I'm glad to do that.
They've done a tremendous amount.
Another thing you have to be aware of is the grant is due the 14th, so
Well,
we're gonna have a lot of time, so.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We'll have to do a lot of
14th November, we're
preliminary
gonna-
preparation to get
The
that.
meeting is not gonna help you.
I have one,
Go ahead.
I have one concern, about the accessibility. Gary, do you know, or maybe Bonnie, has anyone measured the vertical drop or whatever, ascent up to the Liberty Mill to see if it's even feasible to make that section? There's a certain distance, I don't know what it is. but
Yeah,
you-
might be Peter might have.
It wouldn't be able to be a straight line. There'd have to be switchback.
Right, but is there enough room to switch that?
Oh, in the easement?
Yeah. In the whole geography of it. You know,
Right.
Just, it might be something to look into before applying for the grant, so
Right.
you're not paying them money to do.
Mhm.
Good idea.
I've seen a map of the easement, and it doesn't look like it would allow for switchback. Is that gonna be an angle?
Yeah.
It is.
Does that land belong to the Liberty Mall people?
Liberty Mill, I guess I would, I wouldn't want to be saying that this trail cannot be accessible. I mean, I think that's the idea of the scoping project, is they figure out how to make it an accessible trail. I mean, it's not going up a mountain, right?
It's the
Well,
degree of incline that is to be accessible, has to be one. One
A rise of 1 inch per foot.
per foot, yeah.
1 inch per foot. All right.
I think the easement's 8 feet wide, right?
You'd be able to get the switchbacks, and they, that's gonna be awful tight corner.
One of the Liberty Mill
Bridge here or
properties
something, you
is
know?
more expensive.
Wider.
So we
I
can
mean, I
res-
haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but
Let's research. We'll research.
Yeah, we can
that.
bring that back to the next
Yep.
meeting when the grant's gonna be discussed and brought back to us in fall.
Okay.
All right, let's go down to the bike racks. There's, I don't know if you got the emails handed to me this morning. Evidently, you're in there, so
Yeah.
six pack.
So one, you guys want to speak to bike racks?
Well, I just wanted to clarify one thing. You said is no, I don't have it on me, but it, each hoop holds 2 bikes. So, yeah, 3 hoops would hold the bikes. But I just wanted to be clear that it wasn't a 6 hoop.
That's what,
For 6
that's what
bikes.
this thing says.
It says 6
Six bike rack.
bike rack, yes, which is only 3 hoops. That's
Yeah.
all.
And so we're hoping to, we spoke with the Saxon River, on November 7th, we meet the Saxon River Valley, or the Saxon River trustees, sorry. They're going to consider picking up half the tab for this, one that is located in Saxon's River. So that's the first one I want to talk about. And that's at the Saxon River Market. The owner, Brandy Krausen, has agreed to put it on the east side of her building, stand there, that conversation. And we would split the cost with the Saxon River trustees, we need about $500 each. Right?
That's, what I understand. Jonathan is there, it'd be about 1,000 in total.
So that's on one bike rack. The second bike rack we want to have installed would be on the town property parking lot near the TD Bank and near the farmers market, like the Green Park. There's a parking space there that would be dedicated to becoming a bike rack space. And we've done a lot of conversation about it and spoke with Gary and others. And that seems like a great place to put a bike rack, particularly for people who don't own cars and want to go to the bank or whatever, need to use the services in that area to pull the bike rack, you can pull your bike rack in there. Anything else you guys want to add?
Well, we had talked about also having them up in the park on the school street corner of the park. But shelved it for now, just to, you know, minimize what we're out for now.
There is one for middle school.
Yeah. But, eventually.
Yeah. So our request then would be for fund the bike rack in that parking lot, at the foot of the stairs that come down from Penny Green, within close walking distance of the Steve Bank. And on existing town property. Scott, that's pretty much what we discussed, yes.
I think so, and those are the three spots.
So what about maintenance and what are you gonna keep moving these every time they got a plow down there? That's the situation you've got to think about.
No, it can't be, right? That one can be moved, yeah. It's gonna be on a rack.
Yeah, but who's gonna move it? The town people are gonna be, the plowing down there is gonna have to
I think it's
move the stuff.
Is it intended for winter use? I think it just be left alone. It doesn't have to be plowed, does it? Just one parking space way at the end of that corner. It's just gonna be left there until the snow melts.
Next to it.
There's no need to plow.
on top.
People are using their bikes in the snow. At least we hope they are.
Oh, you'd be surprised. I've seen them riding the bikes.
Seriously, I know, you're right, but
Not without any chains, but for spiked tires, but I have
right.
seen.
But anyway, for our for the purposes of this, we want to keep it as simple as possible and cost the town as least as possible.
Because then you gotta look, if you're gonna take it, if that's where they plow the snow, then the rack is gonna get buried and there's a chance of getting it damaged. Somebody's gonna hit it. I can tell you from past experience working with this truck company, where we plowed and they plowed into the bank and all of a sudden, when they put the bucket up, there was a car in there.
Oh,
We don't know where the car came from, but I'll tell you, it was very careful, put back down, then we just left.
So Scott, do you have any recommendations, like a marker, the way they do like keep people from getting things?
I'm sure we could try to. It's a location where it's pretty much all of it.
Yes.
Now, the one at the market out there, that's going on the east side. What about snow coming on, snow and ice coming off the roof of that building?
It's beyond the overhang.
It will run its own drainage. We're in kind of the same area. People probably be riding the bikes and snow coming off. They're galvanized steel, so snow coming off. I can't see any damage in it.
No, but if you get a chunk of ice comes off there, it could squash it, I can tell you, guaranteed. So I'm just bringing up these cautions, because I don't want you guys coming back and saying, oh, we ruined the bike rack and now we gotta buy another one. And how many more we're gonna end up buying because somebody can think about.
Is it beyond the range though of where ice could fall?
It's pretty close to that roof.
Is that a slate roof? Isn't it slate?
Honestly, don't know.
Check that out.
We were there, we were there.
Yeah, I think if it comes closer to the back of that community board, it might be safe there because there's no roof comes off.
Right. So we could,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that'd be, I don't know where you're putting it, but that's just a thought.
Yeah, she's got a big, table on the table.
so we have, that could probably be fine. It's pretty open.
Yeah, and we probably do it till next spring so we can see where the snow is.
Well, I would agree, they're fairly frail, so you do want to be careful where recycling.
Just things to think about before you get to the point and find out that it's come spring and you don't have a bike rack anymore.
So I would like to move that we approve these in concept and give the town manager working with the highway department we wait to decide how exactly to place the one by heavy green and how that might impact plowing. I guess the companies in the end.
Right.
So I guess
I'll second that.
The motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Did these come assembled or somebody got to put them together?
welcome to loans.
Yeah.
That's another cost that the highway department, we're gonna, I can just see this all falling on the highway department to do this stuff.
Yeah.
I think we can do that.
So. Any other questions, comments?
I guess the only comment I would make is just for this and for any other things in the downtown area, just by tradition, not by statute. The design committee has advised on infrastructure improvements. So just to make you aware, that is, just like it's a tradition, been involved in taking out stuff, so.
I didn't know
And having a, we do, yeah. Yeah, we really are the ones who try to guide and have a unified appearance to the downtown area. So it's just traditional, so, but just let you know.
If I read this number right, it says we're supposed to split the whole sector is gonna pay $520, and we're paying, the town's paying $520. But down further, it says it's quoted $900 for 6 bike rack.
That quote was out of date, now it's 1,040, 1,000 something.
No big, I'm just bringing up a point of information. Right, everybody ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. I'm not, excuse me. I would say, those opposed say nay. I'm not saying. I want to clarify that. Don't get shot by some bicyclists. Drive by or something. All right, let's go to the resolution of support BDCC for creation of EDD. This was discussed at our meeting on the 18th, and we put it off to get a letter of support that which is what they requested. There's no funding involved as far as I know. So it was, Scott, you have something there?
Yeah, it's just, they do these 5-year plans, right? For some of them are strategies. So really, the EDD makes them, it brings them a larger net to try to capture more federal money. So really, the goal here is we're supporting them to help us cast a wider net and be eligible for more federal projects and more federal dollars. So good night, guys. So that's really what this is. And they had asked us at our last meeting, the board would be willing. So we just threw together a quick resolution.
So we need a motion to adopt the resolution and authorize Scott to sign that. You figured that the original or someplace?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I move that we authorize the manager to sign the BCC resolution, right, supporting creation of EDD.
We're here a second.
I'll second.
What's been made and seconded to adopt the resolution of support for BDCC and authorize the manager to sign said resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
Sorry to wake you up.
Fast moving meeting.
Yeah, well, we gotta try to wait. We haven't lost a half hour to start yet. Okay, now, let's go down to number 4 here. This is award the demolition for 2 properties. One is 9 Barker Street. We all know that's the party down there coming to town, and 2128 Broadway Mills is the one that has the landslide all down into the gulch down there. And I guess from what I've heard, they say it's getting worse. So
Yeah, the rate of loss of the severity of that slope is pretty dramatic. How quickly that's sliding.
So the house could end up down there.
We're hoping to get this done. We're really hoping to get this done
Get
before
that out of there.
it goes. That would be a real mess.
that is
But
coma down.
that is supported, the Parkway Mills project is supported by the federal funds through the FEMA program. So this will be paid for. The other part, the 9 Barker, we're hoping will recapture at some point in time once the house is down. If the board looks at future opportunities for redevelopment on that lot, we're hoping to be able to recapture some of those costs. But it has become a real eyesore and an opportunity for us to improve one of our gateways. We had to offer both of these as a package because the way that the federal procurement worked, we have to award them in 2 separate motions. So that's why we required the bidders to make sure that they bid them both together. And then we'll have to accept both bids as part of your resolution if you want to go forward with this.
It appears that the lowest bidder is Adams Trucking and Excavating.
Yes.
Or can we choose for each? I don't know if there's one that's different than the other.
There are different pricing, but again, because of the way that the spec was advertised, we have to award that as a package. together, so.
So we will need a motion for the demolition of 9 Barker Street in the amount of $30,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Someone make that motion, the second one I just did.
I just have a question. Is there any
Well, put it on the
explanation?
table first. Oh,
Oh, okay,
so just give me a second.
Second.
Okay, now you can go ahead.
okay. Is there any explanation for why this one bid is twice as much as the other?
I think
Want
some
the
of it
money.
is availability of manpower and how they fit it into we did this specifically to do it as winter work, so that
Okay.
these guys were not busy. That's kind of why we waited on this. That's, we were waiting through the summer and the spring when they're really busy. So I don't really know why it's price on.
I just wondered if maybe these low bids were unrealistic or something
No.
like that, or?
All the bidders were aware of the location. They were.
Yeah.
The site.
If you remember our last simulation, there was big difference in the numbers that were bid
Right.
on that project.
It's not unusual. I think it just comes with availability when they're trying to fill their schedule.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to award the Barker Street demolition project for $30,000 for Adams Trucking and Excavating. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Next part is to award the 2128 Brockway Mills demolition to, again, Adams Trucking and Excavating for the sum of $24,995. It's got to paid for by the,
This will be a full reimbursement through the.
so we've got a reimbursement on that one.
Once that
Not involved,
condition
money, but
is-
we do to award
that
that.
building is gone, that can't be redeveloped, that
So
property
do
again.
I hear a second?
It's a floodplain. I think
So moved.
Okay, all right, so we got everybody on board here, so. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Scott, if the FEMA reimbursement takes as long as the other one did, we could be all dead and gone by the time the money shows up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. They've been incredibly slow on public assistance money. This is a separate pot of money, so I'm hoping that this money will come more quickly. We've done this before with other, after Irene.
I remember on Saxon's River, along 121, there was.
Right.
Did you wait?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that took almost 2 years to get that, just that one property taken care of,
I remember.
so.
All right, so that's one of the questions.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Oh, okay, motion remain seconded to approve, approve the award, the bid for 2128 Broadway Mills Road demolition to Adams Trucking and Excavating for $24,995. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Who carries? That I. There we go. All right, let's go down to RMH Field Lease. That's a Rockingham Meeting House.
Right.
There is a copy of the original lease that was in there. You will see that it originally stated $300, and we changed that at our meeting at the Rockingham Meeting House to $100, which is the terms and rent attachment A that you have in your packet. Any questions?
It's still the same lessee, it's Donald Senate, would be the person that would continue with the lease, and I know he spoke to the board at the August meeting. So this is just sort of a continuation of that conversation, and will put us in a 3-year window to move it ahead.
I move that we accept the lease as proposed.
Wait a second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to adopt the extension of the Rockingham Meeting House Hayfield lease and authorize the manager to sign said lease. Further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have 10 Church Place, proposed sale. This is the fire property on Church Place. Familiar with that? The house next door has been purchased by this person. They are wishing to purchase the lot next door, which is what we're discussing.
Right, there's currently nothing on this particular lot, and they did buy the multifamily that's next door, and my understanding is they want to use that to help support renovating and updating that multifamily property at Church Place. So really, I'm asking the board tonight, we had discussed this previously, if you authorize this intent, then I will have our town attorney draw up the closing documents, and we'll go ahead and proceed to closing and try to get this closed before the end of this current budget, or this current calendar year. Not budget year.
Is this advertised to the public, or is this deal with this negotiations directly with you?
It was a direct contact.
It made sense, the guy owned the house next door, just owned the lot next door, so.
Right. We didn't advertise the land for sale.
It was a
Do an
fairly-
outreach.
Yeah, Google, and butter would have a greater value to the butter than.
Exactly.
Right.
The only question I had is, I know we discussed a couple of numbers with that, and I noticed this is less than the number I think we were hoping we were gonna get. I think we're looking for 15, and I think we're gonna start at 20, so 20 item, that didn't fly, and he came back.
He came back twice, and you and I talked about this is the final number that
Okay,
we got to.
yeah, I just wanna,
Yeah, we went through a couple rounds with this, so this is where it ended up, and it'll cover at least some of your initial tax sale costs when it was acquired. It was $11,326 when it was acquired in tax sale back in 2016. I think so.
I don't remember what is the assessed value of the lot.
Well, it's higher than that because it has water and sewer. So if you're going to develop it as a building lot, it would have a higher value. But it'd be a difficult property because it would require a variance because it is very narrow. Doesn't have a tremendous amount of frontage. It's kind of an odd shape. So that was one of the reasons why we thought that this made the most sense.
what was this space real estate? Is this in conjunction with the Ford and Toyota dealership down the road there? It looks like the same address.
It's part of the same crew, yes.
Yeah. I'm just curious.
Right, but they run it through their LLC.
All right, we will need a motion for the intent to purchase 10 church plates. So your motion.
Yeah, I'll move that, we authorize, the sale of 10 church plates.
And authorize the
And also
manager to
authorize
sign.
the manager to, conduct the, transaction.
Second,
A second.
motion made and seconded to approve the intent to purchase 10 church plates and authorize the manager to sign said lease or sale. Those, all those in favor would say aye.
All right.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Here comes the good one. Highway equipment and operating fund update.
So we went through and we put a spreadsheet in your packet, just to give you a couple of sort of data points here to take a look at. So this is a basic listing of all of our heavy equipment, our plow trucks, pickups, the basic stuff that we use in our highway department. One of the issues that we were having and one of the issues the board was concerned with was we were continuously doing these 5-year notes. So we would have all of this debt that we have to continue to pay, and we weren't able to acquire some of our newer equipment because by the time we paid our debt, we didn't have enough money with our $270,000 equipment transfer to keep our fleet basically up to speed. So last year, if you remember, we authorized or asked the voters, and they were graciously granting us the permission to buy an extra truck, which we then went out and did. At the same time, we were told by our supplier that there was such a backlog of inventory that if you would at least consider a second vehicle, thinking it might take up to 2 years to get a second vehicle delivered, which would have been on schedule. So at that point, we said, sure, didn't see any particular concern. Well, we get a call now saying, well, the vehicles are in state and available. We had not planned on putting it into this fiscal year. We didn't think we would have it for the winter. So it's kind of a good news, bad news problem. So really the question for the board is, in order to sort of, I wanted to bring this schedule to you with an understanding of what it means in relationship, you can see what our current plow inventory is. It would replace the oldest truck in our inventory, which would obviously be beneficial for our plowing season, as well as it keeps us into a schedule that's going to be a little bit challenging in some of our out years because we have some of our larger equipment, like some of our graders and some of our heavier equipment that'll need to be replaced as we go forward. So this keeps us in a good place in our snow and just general operations. We were looking at some options to push, we pushed out some of our vehicles closer to a 10-year replacement. So you can see some of the purple where that would have pushed out some of our acquisitions so that we have some wiggle room so the board as we go forward might have some options when we get into some of these larger numbers. And it gives us an opportunity to sort of get our fleet, and at that point, we'd be in pretty good shape in terms of our primary plowing trucks. Now, the reality of it is we don't have any spares, we don't have any replacements. So, the biggest challenge that we have is keeping stuff running, because if something breaks on a route, that driver has to bring that truck in. We'll plow with pickup trucks or whatever we can get out on the road or the grader, but obviously you don't get around as easily as you can get out on a 10-wheeler or a 6-wheeler. So it's a mess when we have these things aging out and breaking down on the routes. We haven't had really tough winters the last couple of years where we've had tremendous numbers of heavy storms and big snowstorms, but everything goes in cycles. I guess at some point we do. And what this will do, I think, is give us a pretty solid frontline snow plowing fleet to help us through this winter and put us on a pretty good schedule to keep ourselves afloat as we go forward.
When you trade in this, the vehicle that arrived before we expected it to, what was the trade-in plan?
So we'll drop out the oldest Western Star, which will be a 2016.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because there's no 2015 listed in here, because that was the one we traded on the other truck.
Right.
So,
And the trade-in value will be 50,000.
Yes.
50.
Yes.
So this is the truck that we did not order, or we ordered a truck and now this one's
We
coming
ordered
in.
them at the same time, thinking that the other one was going to come in. He told us it was going to be an 18 to 24 month window, so we said reserve us a truck. We only want another plow truck, and we'll hopefully be at a point in the next budget cycle to do it. Well, of course now we come in. So
The trade-in still has another year on its warranty, though, doesn't it? You said they're 7-year warranties.
No, most of them have 5 years on most. Well, it depends on which ones they are. Some of them have 5 years on the major portion. Some of them have 7 years on some of the pieces of it, like transmissions or various things. So, but they do fall apart almost on schedule. So if you have a 5-year warranty, it's amazing what happens in year 6.
You almost need to design
Right. I guess it's planned obsolescence.
So we will need a motion to,
I would ask the board if they could
Authorize
transfer some
transfer.
money to the equipment fund to cover that balance.
and that's going to be replaced. When we, you're talking about something you're doing.
There's also not reflected in your current budget, but when we did, if you remember, we did the $145,000 paving grant for Pleasant Valley Road, and that was never programmed into your budget because that occurred after you guys adopted your budget. So our overall highway budget will be supplemented by that reimbursement. We've done Pleasant Valley. The work is done, so we have all that. Now we just have to submit that back to DOT, and then we'll get that grant reimbursement. So
it's basically not much change to the budget.
it'll be some impact to the budget, because remember we went over a little bit in our paving, so there'll be some impact to that, but it won't be as dramatic with that offset of that 145,000.
And the fund balance is coming from the highway fund balance, right?
Yes, we asked for the highway balance.
Everybody's clear.
Right.
So we have a motion to approve transfer.
I move that make the appropriate transfer to purchase the vehicle that's Travis described.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve, authorize the transfer of 102,000 from highway fund balance to equipment fund to pay for a truck that is now going to be ours. It's accomplished. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. There is some highway update and operating finance information in front of you. Hopefully you can decipher that. If not, Scott is here to straighten it out.
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody has seen sort of where we are today. Because there's been a concern about, Bonnie was saying that we were going to be running into some significant problems. At this point, we're in pretty good shape. I think like everybody, our two biggest concerns right now are if the railroads go on strike, we might have a salt problem over the winter, which is something none of us can control, but is a concern. So we've taken deliveries and stocked up accordingly. So we're as full as we can be right now on road salt.
How far can you get on what's in stock now?
Depends on the storms. That's the challenge with it, Elijah. Some storms are, we just don't know. If it's a really cold storm, if it freezes early and then the snow's heavy, salt's pretty much useless. Last year we used a lot of salt because it was pretty warm. We didn't really have a really heavy deep freeze. So it was pretty effective for the most part. We got our fingers crossed on what's going to happen this year with that. But the biggest challenge we have with obviously is that just you can't program how many storms you could potentially have. And then next year we have a pretty robust paving program, and so we'll have to have that conversation as we talk about budget for next year. Because we look, we're on our paving management schedule, and we've got streets in the village mostly in the next round. So we're still working on some of those costs, but that's something that the board is going to have to work through as we work through all of our budget numbers for next year's budget. The highway department itself at this point, we don't anticipate, and again, it's like any year-to-year problem. I mean, if we have a couple major storms like like we had with the July storm, and we have some culverts blowing out, then it changes our overall picture. But at the moment, I don't have anything that I can tell you up front is going to be a problem, or geez, we really have to pay attention. And gas is gas, so I think we're all aware that our prices for just basically running our trucks, gas and diesel, are going to be higher than previous years. So we'll have to keep an eye on that expenditure as we go forward as well.
Well, on the comparative budget report, page 204. Yep. Depot Street Bridge fund, I thought we appropriated another 50,000 for this budget year here. There's nothing showing there. Does it show up someplace else and not here?
I thought we had only done one year appropriation. You thought there was a second?
I thought there were 2 years we did. I know that. We did. Now, it may be hidden somewhere else, so you want to check that. And then I noticed the streetlight usage here, $16,000 over. Was that because of the ballast? I can't believe the ballast and cost math. I wonder if something else is causing the overage. That's a lot of money to be over.
Well, we had to replace some, if you remember. Some got knocked down. So I think we did get some insurance reimbursement, but didn't cover all the costs. There was a couple, I think, that we have to replace down on Canal Street. So some of that was insurance recovery, but not all of that either. So I think that part of that was thrown into some of that as well. But I'll double check to see if there's something under.
Would it be under maintenance stuff?
Well, see, that's what I'm not sure of. Sometimes we get charged the wrong thing. So it might have gotten thrown into the wrong number.
The tree lights and stuff that light out, are they constantly on all night, or are they got cut off at midnight?
They don't cut off.
Right?
No, they're on.
They're on all the time, pretty much then.
Yeah.
Is that, well, I'm wondering is what's driving that.
probably not gonna be $16,000.
Right.
Where in that.
Well, I hope not.
They're LEDs, so they don't use a lot of. Where's the power?
Well, it seems like if those
Alyssa
lights are
jumping
on
in.
that long.
You know, maybe Alyssa has something else to add.
Ma'am, you ringing our bell there?
Sometimes she-
Was that me?
That's you.
I
Trying to point at you, you're in.
I just wanted to respond to your question about the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure you're correct, and that is in the reserve fund,
That's
under
what I
the
thought.
capital.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
It would only seem wrong to comparative budget. It might just be for the current year. not
Yeah, we'll just
the
check
prior
and make sure when we get a final finance overview, we can show up hopefully. But I'm pretty sure we've done that, because we're gonna be doing that in the coming budget year too, the same thing. We're gonna be looking at that. Okay, let's move to the addition that we had, and that was to approve Form MP1. This is one that we had approved earlier or did some business with at an earlier meeting. It just came back to us because they want the board to
When you
sign it.
do CDBG work, the government periodically asks you to update your policies and procedures, and there's basic things in there like our drug policies that we use for drug-free workforce and our discrimination policies and our ethics policies, the ones that we've had. And all that is just a reaffirmation that we're in compliance with all of the federal requirements for that. And that keeps you eligible for CDBG funding. The reason why it's somewhat time sensitive is because we have an application in for consideration for $60,000 in planning and implementation money for the design piece of the improvements to the train station. So David was asked if we could update that prior to they have a meeting, I believe it's the 10th of November. So they had asked if we could get this updated so they could have that in their package for presentation. So that's unfortunately why I had to bring it to you at such a late, so it's the last minute.
So we will need a motion to approve the municipal policy and codes Form MP1 and authorize the board to sign same, and we will have to probably ratify this vote next meeting.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve the municipal policy and codes Form MP1 and authorize the board to sign said document. All those in favor would say aye.
aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. And there are two places you need to print your name, you can print and then sign. Come around. Okay, moving right along here. Review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. Take a motion.
I move that we approve the orders, bills, and warrants.
Wait a second. Motion made and seconded to approve orders, bills, and warrants. Any questions on them? I reviewed them and sent them back, but I don't pay them, so. I don't see anything in there that caused me any heartburn, so. That being said, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and those are coming around, so. Review agenda items for the November 15, 2022 meeting. Scott, we're gonna have finances or probably not.
Yeah, we are, because we're hoping to have the auditors come and give a presentation of the audit. So
Okay.
Alyssa's been trying to get them to the finish line. They've been a little bit behind and we're still trying to hold them to that date. So at this point, fingers crossed, they'll get that done and they'll be able to have that portion as well as updated financials for that meeting as well.
Anything else anyone can think of, but if not, we've got a whole lot to think about it. Okay, we're going to a joint board meeting, November 29, 22. I know Rick mentioned he wanted to talk about a white paper and retention of employees, the safety, especially the safety department. Good idea, and I will forward the email out that has a link, and I wish everyone will review that white paper, so we know what we're talking about when we get to the meeting. You gotta have a whole month to do it, so. Anyone else have anything to go for?
Deb will do the same. Looks like Amy emailed that she supports it, so.
Yeah.
Deb will do the
Yeah,
same.
she was gonna take it to their board, so I'll just send out the top, so you,
All right.
so they'll have that link, they can get that. It's
Yeah.
only one page, so it's not taking long to read it. So. Okay, other business. Let's start with the logic, anything? Hate to interrupt your signatures there, but fine.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, the only one I got the answer to it, but on the September 6th meeting, we approved $7,531 for the ESO. That's a new contract for reporting for the incidents, fire and accidents, et cetera, et cetera. I noticed in the Saxon River meetings that they are now have been approached by the rescue squad for some funding to approve update theirs, and I thought Scott told me that all three of them were included in that 7531, but maybe not, just the fire departments.
My understanding was that three departments, the fire, National Fire Incident Reporting, so the MIPers were all involved.
They should do a piggyback on the fire department. I would hope so, because Amy mentioned that I saw her this weekend, and she said that it's a big money. In my mind, I said, why are they spending so much money that?
Well, that's what I was trying to find out, because I looked back in the minutes, and that's what we approved, $7,531, and I think the minutes in the select board, the trustees out there was like $2,600, it's a recurring amount, and they hadn't budgeted for it, well, things like happen, so.
You know, that's the point of consolidating, at least cooperation with the fire departments. You could save money.
Because they being an independent department out there, same as the town of Rockingham department, they're financed by the village out there. They're now looking from what the minutes and trustee says, that they figure the town's gonna end up picking up the tab for that, so we need to straighten that out.
And, we also have the same population, it's kind of silly to have three.
Well, there again, this is still working on the fire committee, so.
Do you want to approach Amy about that? Or do you?
Well, we'll talk
I can
about
talk
the
to
fire
you.
committee.
Oh, okay.
So we'll
Yeah,
get
the
call
fire
tomorrow.
committee's in a couple of weeks. Anyway.
I think it's next Monday.
Right, 14th. All right, that being said, I guess we'll go into executive session for discussion of union negotiation strategy.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm most engaged today.
Okay, we need a motion or a second to the motion I just made.
I'll second.
All right, we in executive session. I don't think it's necessary to close that door. We're not going to be here that long.
So just for the facts, the folks on TV, we will not be coming back to public session. So we're not going to take any actions. So we're going to say goodnight.
Recording